When you grew up in your part of the country, in your part of the world, did you have Rawhead? Did you have the Boogeyman? Or did you have some other entity, some other being that was used to scare you into not being naughty as a child? I'm Jeffrey Daugherty, the Christian Whistleblower. We're talking today about Rawhead. Rawhead was the predecessor of the Boogeyman. And I've never heard of Rawhead, but I know the Boogeyman down south where I'm from. We didn't have Rawhead, but let me tell you one thing for sure. We had the Boogeyman. And the Boogeyman was not a dude that you wanted to deal with. I don't know if you've ever heard of Rawman, but you're about to hear about Rawman right now. And before we get started, I want to encourage you, when you have an opportunity, to take a look at jeffreydaugherty.com. We've got our divining rods there. We've got T-shirts there. We've got books there. And we have the MYSTECH bracelets there as well that you see me wearing all the time. They've changed my life. I think they'll change yours. Read the testimonials. Look at the website. Choose the brand. Choose the band that you want. But most importantly, come back here and use this button to order, because it does give you 20% off. If you don't see this, you haven't got 20% off, and you're not helping your friendly neighborhood Christian whistleblower. So help me help you by helping you. And that's the way it works. It's the Boogeyman over in the UK. Deborah Gail Hickman had the Boogeyman. Ben Herrera had the Boogeyman. I had the Boogeyman. But there is an entity that's known as, ladies and gentlemen, that's known as the Rawhead or Bloody Bones. Rawhead, Tommy Rawhead, or Rawhead and Bloody Bones. The term Rawhead and Bloody Bones and other such names was actually used to scare children, to keep them in subjection. And it was first used by John Locke in 1693 in the book Some Thoughts Concerning Education that came from Cambridge University Press. So John Locke is the first one to, in print, talk about Rawhead, to talk about Bloody Bones, to talk about boogeymen, which were used to keep children in subjection, to obviously scare kids into being good little boys and girls. In the Dictionary of the English Language, 1755, Rawhead was called the name of a specter mentioned to frighten children. It looks like the story started in Great Britain, so it's your fault if you're in Great Britain or the UK, and particularly if you're in Lancashire or in Yorkshire. That's where the stories came from. And I guess as people moved over to America, the story spread to America. We're especially big in the southern United States, where I'm from. And the Oxford English Dictionary cites about 1548 as the earliest written appearance of Bloody Bone, of Rawhead, of the Boogeyman. A lot of times, it's a demon associated with water. So you're telling kids, stay away from the pond because the Boogeyman will get you, or Rawhead will get you. And of course, you're trying to keep children away from ponds so they don't drown. So you make up a monster to keep them away from it even more. He's also called Grindylow. And actually, a Grindylow was a creature from folk tales in English counties who was related to Grendel, who was, of course, in Beowulf, where it seems to have connection with bogs and lakes, pools, marshes, ponds, keeping away from where they could drown. There's also another entity called Jenny Greenteeth, not to be confused with Jenny Moonstone. It's called Jenny Greenteeth, and it's the same thing. Stay away from the lake, stay away from the pond, stay away from the river, or Jenny Greenteeth will get you. It's amazing to me that we do these things, we say these things to keep our children in line. Rawhead is called Rawhead because his skull is exposed. He has no skin on his head. He's a headless dancing skeleton sometimes. And he has been known to go after gossipers. It's also big in African American tradition as well. I'm sorry if you think this is rubbish. It's called education. And if you don't like it, go back and watch some Jerry Springer. Bye. And the thing about it that really gets me going is that there are boogeymen, there are bad guys replete throughout cultures all over the world. It's crazy, ladies and gentlemen. It seems like everybody has a boogeyman. In Southeast Asia, they've got a Bouganese or a Bugis pirate, and he comes and gets people. Hold on a second. As usual, I've got to remove the chat over here because we got a bunch of dummies that can't behave themselves. So guess what? Little children, let us pause the show because you're so stupid that we actually got to hide the chat because you're being vulgar and idiotic. I wish there was a damn boogeyman sometimes. But you have boogeymen in Southeast Asia. It's a pirate guy in Southeast Asia. You've got Sackman in Brazil, Portugal, Spain. You've got El Coco in Spain. You've got Babao in the Mediterranean countries, Italy, Romania. You've got Bootsman in the German countries. Afghanistan has the Madar Il. Albania, the Buba, the Gogol, the Lubia, the Hydra. Azerbaijan has the Div. The Bahamas has the Small Man. Belgium, Ode Road Ogan, or Old Red Eyes. Belize has Tata Duende. Bosnia, Herzegovina, Barbaroga. Brazil, Portugal, Bulgaria, Canada. Even the Canadians have their own boogeyman. There's French boogeyman in Newfoundland and Labrador, the old hag. In the Yukon, they got Quankus. And Inuit, which is basically American Indian, they have a shape-shifting creature called Ijirak, kidnaps children, harms them. The Congo, China, Cyprus, Czech Republic, Egypt, England, even though somebody from England has never heard of them, so I get called names. I can't help it if you're ignorant. Finland, Georgia, not Georgia, but Georgia in Europe. Iceland, Hungary, India, Indonesia, Iran, Iraq, Italy, Japan, Korea, Lithuania, Luxembourg, Macedonia, Malaysia, Malta, Mexico, Myanmar, Nepal, Pakistan, Panama, Philippines, Poland, Russia, Saudi Arabia, Scotland, Serbia, Singapore, South Africa, Spain, Sweden, Switzerland, Taiwan, Trinidad and Tobago, Turkey, Ukraine, UAE, US, the Jersey Devil. Amazing, ladies and gentlemen. And all of these things are ubiquitous across Western cultures and across cultures that, if you notice, the one common denominator was that just about all of those cultures, except for the American Indians, are Abrahamic based. Isn't that interesting? So you've got children that you scare into being good, or some demon's going to grab them. And when you become adults, we've still got a boogeyman. The boogeyman is the devil. The boogeyman is the concept of hell. What kind of a parent scares their children into behaving? I've been a parent. I can understand that every now and then. But what kind of a God, what kind of a religion scares people into behaving, scares people into believing? I was a Pentecostal preacher for 20 years. I'm a Bible college graduate. I've got over 100,000 hours of study within the biblical scriptures, and I can tell you that there's few things preached more within Christian culture than hell. We were specialists at preaching hell hot. We were specialists at preaching it so hot that it made your feet on the floor burn. 80% or more of Christians are not Christians because of their love for supposed baby Jesus. They're Christians because they've purchased eternal fire insurance. 8 out of 10 Christians aren't there because they love Jesus. 8 out of 10 Christians are there because they're afraid of the devil. Shame on me for preaching fear for 20 years. Shame on me for preaching the devil for 20 years. Shame on me for preaching hell for 20 years. And shame on you for listening. Shame on you that followed. And shame on us if we resort to using objects of fear and terror to control our children into doing what we want them to do. Think about it, folks. Isn't it about time that Rawhead and the Boogey-Man and all the rest of these creatures were put to rest? Isn't it about time that we just acted like real parents? And isn't it about time that the hellfire and brimstone of Christianity was put to rest? In fact, isn't it time that we shut down every single church and made them useful, like places for the homeless to sleep, or maybe places to store garbage? Give them a purpose that serves humanity. But enough of the fear, enough of the terror, enough of using fear to control people. We've been controlled since we were kids by stories of monsters. We're controlled as adults by stories of hell. Isn't there a better way? Let's look at the chat room and see what people have to say here. Boogey-Man in the UK. They still do that stuff today. Absolutely. Boogey-Man in the dark. Jenny Greenteeth. Creature from the Black Lagoon. See, there he is again. He's near water. Stay out of the water. Melissa says we do make up stuff to keep our kids away from danger. I wish that we didn't do it. Children are afraid of the dark. That really helps them a lot. Absolutely. What about Bloody Mary? A good one. Krampus in Christmas. Absolutely. That's a good one. The Chupacabra down in Mexico in the American Southwest. Definitely the Chupacabra. The Southwestern USA has Charlie. I've never heard of Charlie. Antoinette Badenhorst says Namibia, Africa. If that's where she's from, salute to you in Africa. Very nice to have you joining us here on the Jeff Daugherty channel, The Gospel Truth, The Jeff Daugherty Show. Mothman, absolutely. I wonder how many ancient cultures had little or no contact with each other, but had similar boogeymen. Good question. We've got some scary creatures, made up or not. Werewolves, absolutely. El Cucuy, C-U-C-U-Y for Hispanics. Hellfire and brimstone preaching for the rest of us. Bigfoot, absolutely. Lots and lots of scary creatures. Lots and lots of fear. Lots and lots of terror. We start them off as kids, scaring them. And then we sit as adults in pews and listen to a preacher scare us to death that if we don't sell our soul to Jesus, the ultimate crossroad demon, we're going to go to hell. I say enough fear, time for some enlightenment. I say enough doubt, enough terror, and time for some real Enlightenment. That's the best word I can think of. And you have to wonder about the culture and it's ubiquitous in human culture. Have a safe flight home, Sandra D. It's ubiquitous in human culture. It makes me wonder about us. On a natural level, a very gut human level, we're all afraid of something. And on a very gut human level, we all seek to control. That's why these things are used to control us, to scare us. It's time to say no to fear. It's time to say no to terror. All the black-eyed children. Absolutely. I think Sandra's phone is continuing to, it's on a loop or something. It keeps sending the same message. So we're going to go ahead and put her in timeout, not because she's bad, but because it looks like her phone is jacked up, and we don't need to see that message anymore, I don't think. Everyone, Sandra D is getting ready for takeoff. And of course, we hope that she has a really good flight. And I think it's enough of the really good frights. Let's move beyond that tactic of scaring our children. Let's go ahead and move into something that's much more productive. Let's do something that will help people. Let's do something that will develop children. Let's do something more than just scare them. And if you're a preacher, quit preaching hell, quit preaching fire, quit preaching brimstone. And if you're a Christian and you're still going to those churches, even though I've warned you that you're getting infected when you do, if they start talking about that, it's time to walk out, and to walk out for good. The only boogeyman should be on Supernatural, right? I'm Jeffrey Daugherty, the Christian Whistleblower. Fear is ubiquitous in our culture. Let's rise above it. Terror is ubiquitous in our culture. Let's rise above it. Control is ubiquitous in our culture. Let's rise above it. Let's stop scaring people and start enlightening people. I'm Jeffrey Daugherty, the Christian Whistleblower, and I'll see you again real soon.